The city was loud, messy, and unkind to those who had nothing. Cars honked, buses roared, and people walked past each other without noticing anything except where they were going next. Amid the crowd, a small girl moved carefully, trying to stay out of the way. Her clothes were torn, her shoes too big, and her hair fell in messy strands across her face. She looked tiny against the tall buildings and the bustling crowds, as if she didn't belong anywhere. But she had learned to survive, and she had learned to be careful. She had to. Her name was Lena. She had been alone for as long as she could remember. No parents, no family, no one to turn to. Each day was a struggle to find something to eat, a safe place to rest, and some hope that tomorrow would be a little better than today. Sometimes she would find food in trash cans behind restaurants. Sometimes someone would toss a sandwich or a pastry her way. It wasn't much, but it kept her alive. That day, the wind was sharp and cold, biting through the thin layers of clothes she wore. Lena shivered as she walked down the street, hugging herself to keep warm. She passed by a cafe, the kind that smelled of fresh bread and roasted coffee, a place where people came to enjoy a warm meal and the comfort of not worrying about hunger. The smell made her stomach twist with hunger, and she paused to watch the people inside. Their laughter and chatter felt like it belonged to another world, one she couldn't reach. Yet she couldn't help looking. A man sat at a corner table alone. He wore a suit that looked expensive, and the watch on his wrist caught the light in a way that spoke of wealth. He had a calm, confident air, as if nothing in the world could bother him. Lena hesitated at first. She knew she shouldn't bother anyone. Most people ignored her. Some scolded her for being too close, and some even tried to chase her away. But hunger gnawed at her, sharper than her fear. She took a deep breath, her small chest rising and falling quickly, and stepped closer to the table. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice barely louder than the wind outside. "May I have your leftovers, please?" The man looked up, startled. He blinked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. Most people didn't even notice a girl like Lena, but he did. He saw the dirt on her hands, the holes in her coat, and the way she tried to stand tall despite the obvious fear in her eyes. But beyond that, he saw something else, something he couldn't quite name. Her eyes were wide, honest, and not afraid of asking for what she needed. There was a courage in her that struck him in a way he hadn't expected. Lena felt the man's gaze and almost turned to run, but she didn't. She waited, holding her small hands together, trying not to shake too much. I'm sorry for bothering you," she whispered. I didn't eat today." The man didn't say anything for a moment. He studied her quietly. Most people would have dismissed her, told her to go away, or pretended not to see her. But something about her stopped him. Maybe it was the way she didn't plead, the way she simply asked, politely and gently, for help. Maybe it was the spark of hope in her eyes, the same spark that seemed to refuse being extinguished by life's cruelty. He couldn't say. He only knew that he wanted to respond differently. Finally, he nodded. "Come here," he said softly. Lena's eyes widened in surprise. She stepped closer, her feet almost reluctant to move, unsure if this was really happening. The man pushed some of his food toward her. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was more than she had eaten in days. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. She bent her head politely and took a bite. The warmth of the food made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety, comfort, and a strange sense of belonging. She looked up at him, unsure if she should say anything more, but the man spoke first. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone gentle, not condescending. "Lena," she said quietly. She didn't know why she was telling him. Most people didn't care, and, "Where do you live, Lena?" His question was simple, but Lena hesitated. She didn't have a home, not in the sense that most people did. She had corners of streets, benches in parks, places behind closed shops. She didn't know how to explain it. I don't have a place to stay," she admitted finally. The words came out in a whisper, almost ashamed. Most of her life, she had hidden this fact from strangers, learned to survive without anyone noticing. But something in the man's eyes told her it was safe to speak the truth. The man leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. He watched her eat, noticing the careful way she took each bite, as if savoring something she didn't always get. He realized that this girl, who looked so fragile, carried herself with dignity he rarely saw in people who had everything handed to them. There was strength in her weakness, resilience in her struggle. As Lena finished the small portion of food, she felt a little braver. She looked up at him again, hoping she wasn't intruding too much. I usually don't ask anyone, but thank you for letting me eat. The man smiled slightly, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. You're welcome, he said. Don't apologize for asking. Sometimes asking is the bravest thing you can do. Lena blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Brave, asking for food? In her world, asking often meant being ignored or pushed away. But here, this man, a stranger who could have turned his back, was telling her she had courage. It made her chest swell in a way she hadn't felt in years. They sat in silence for a moment, the city noise outside fading into the background. Lena felt a strange comfort in this silence, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, there were people who saw her as more than just a poor, hungry girl. Maybe there were people who could make a difference. The man studied her again, noticing the small cuts on her hands, the dirt under her fingernails, the way her clothes hung loosely on her thin frame. But he didn't see a victim. He saw potential, resilience, and a spirit that refused to be broken. It was rare, and it struck him deeply. He wondered how many people like Lena passed through the streets every day unnoticed, their stories untold. Lena, on the other hand, felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the kind of hope that comes from wishing, but the kind that comes from seeing kindness in action. She didn't know who this man was, and she didn't care about his wealth or status. All she knew was that he had treated her like a person, not a problem to be avoided. As she finished the last crumbs of food, she stood up, ready to leave. She didn't want to overstay or seem greedy, but the man called her back gently. Wait, he said. Can you come back here tomorrow? I want to talk to you more. Lena paused. No one had ever asked her to come back before. People usually wanted her to go away. She felt a flicker of uncertainty, but also a spark of trust. I can, she said softly. And with that, she stepped away, her stomach full for the first time in days, but her heart feeling something even stronger, connection. As she walked through the busy streets, she thought about what had just happened. Could one person really make such a difference in someone's life with just a little attention, a little kindness? She wasn't sure, but she felt a new sense of possibility. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe her life could change. The man watched her disappear into the crowd, his mind racing. He didn't know why, but he felt that this encounter was not by chance. Something about her had touched him deeply, and he knew he couldn't let it go. Most people would forget, move on, and never think twice, but he couldn't. He found himself planning how he could help, how he could ensure that this girl had more than just scraps from strangers. That night, Lena found a safe corner behind a closed shop. She curled up under a thin blanket she had found, thinking about the day. Her stomach was no longer empty, but her mind was full of questions and cautious hope. Maybe life had just shown her a small light in the darkness. Maybe someone finally saw her. The city around her continued to hum and rush, indifferent to the struggles of people like her. But for Lena, one small act had changed something inside. She felt seen, valued, and respected. And for a girl who had learned to survive on invisibility and silence, this was a miracle in itself. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth from the food linger and the memory of the man's eyes stay with her. Tomorrow, she thought, maybe she would be brave enough to take another step forward, and maybe, just maybe, life could offer her more than survival. It could offer her a chance to truly live. The next morning, the city woke to the same chaos, the same noise, the same rush. People hurried past each other, lost in their own worlds. But Lena, small and fragile yet determined, moved through the streets with a different purpose. She remembered the man from the day before, the one who had offered her food without judgment. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope, something she didn't dare to name yet, but that made her heart lighter. She had spent the night huddled in her safe corner behind the closed shop, thinking about the brief encounter. His eyes had held something different, something that made her feel that she wasn't invisible. Most people ignored her, dismissed her, or treated her as a problem. But he had seen her, truly seen her. She didn't fully understand why, but it felt like the beginning of something important. She clutched her thin coat tightly around her, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, and began walking toward the cafe. The streets were still crowded with people, cars honking, bicycles weaving through traffic, and street vendors shouting their wares. Lena moved quietly, trying not to get jostled or noticed too much. She had learned the art of invisibility, but today she didn't feel invisible. She felt a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness. What if he wasn't there? What if she had imagined that he cared at all? She pushed the thoughts aside. She had promised herself she would be brave. As she approached the cafe, she saw him immediately. He was at the same corner table reading a newspaper. His posture relaxed, his expression thoughtful. He looked up and caught her eye. A small smile formed on his lips, and for a moment, Lena felt her chest tighten with relief. She had made it. He was waiting. Not for anything, just waiting. "Lena," he said, his voice gentle. "I'm glad you came." She nodded shyly and stepped closer. He gestured to the seat across from him. She hesitated. She had never sat at a cafe, never been invited to a table by a stranger, especially someone so kind and calm. But something in the way he looked at her made her trust him, so she sat, keeping her hands folded on her lap. He pushed a plate toward her. It was filled with bread, fruit, and some cheese. Not extravagant, but enough for a proper meal. Lena's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't eaten like this in a very long time. She looked up at him, unsure how to express her gratitude. "Please eat," he said kindly. "Take your time." She nodded again and began to eat slowly, savoring each bite. The food warmed her from the inside, but more than that, it gave her a sense of comfort she had not felt in years. It wasn't just the food. It was the attention, the care, the simple act of being acknowledged as a person. After a moment, he asked, "Where do you usually spend your days?" Lena's heart sank a little. It was hard to explain. Most of her life she had survived in corners, behind stores, under bridges, and in the parks. But she spoke honestly. "I move around," she said softly. "I sleep wherever it's safe. I find food wherever I can." He nodded, listening intently, not judging, not interrupting. "That must be hard," he said gently. Lena didn't need to explain further. He understood, not from personal experience, but from observing her, from seeing the courage it took to survive every day. He continued, "Do you have anyone to look after you? Anyone you can trust?" Lena shook her head. Trust was a luxury she didn't have. Most adults either ignored her or looked at her with suspicion. She had learned not to rely on anyone. But she didn't feel fear when she said it. She just stated the truth. "No," she said quietly. He leaned back slightly, his mind working. He had dealt with business problems, market crises, and complex decisions that affected thousands of people. But this was different. Here was a life, fragile and young, teetering on the edge. And unlike a business problem, there was no formula to solve it. There was only human connection, attention, and care. "You're very brave," he said after a pause. Lena blinked. Brave? She had never thought of herself that way. Brave was something rich kids did when they joined clubs or performed in school plays. Brave wasn't scavenging for food or finding a safe corner to sleep. But the man's words made her chest swell in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps survival itself was courage. As they continued talking, Lena began to open up more. She told him small things about her life. Not details that could endanger her, but enough to let him see her world. How she had learned to recognize safe corners in the city. How she avoided people who looked angry or careless. How she had taught herself small tricks to keep warm and stay fed. He listened with patience, asking gentle questions when it seemed appropriate. There was no rush, no judgment, just a conversation. For Lena, it felt extraordinary. He shared small things about himself too, not in a boastful way, but to make her feel comfortable. He didn't talk about money or power. He talked about his love for quiet mornings, for reading, and for watching people unnoticed in the parks. Lena listened, fascinated, because she rarely heard anyone speak this way. Anyone who spoke without trying to impress or command attention. Hours passed. Lena barely noticed the time. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Normalcy. She felt like a person again, not a problem to be solved. Not an invisible shadow in a world that didn't care. The man offered more food, more warmth, more attention than she had ever known. He asked her questions that made her think, laugh softly, and even share small dreams she had never voiced before. She wanted to be an artist, she admitted shyly, to draw and paint scenes from her world, the city streets, the corners where she slept, the people she saw but no one else noticed. He encouraged her, telling her that her observations were unique and valuable. As the day went on, Lena realized that this connection was unlike any she had ever experienced. It was safe, nurturing, and inspiring. She began to trust a little at a time, understanding that not everyone was cruel or indifferent. The man, too, felt the change within himself. He had expected a simple interaction, perhaps a moment of charity, but he found himself invested in her story, her future, and her well-being. He realized that helping someone like Lena was not just about giving food. It was about seeing potential, about valuing life, about making a real difference. He invited her to come back the next day, to continue their conversation, to share her thoughts and ideas. Lena agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt that this moment, this connection, was the first step towards something bigger than mere survival. When it was time to leave, he handed her a small envelope with some money and a note. "For whatever you need. And remember, you are not invisible." Lena clutched it, tears welling up in her eyes. Not because of the money, but because someone had seen her, truly seen her, and cared. She nodded, whispering a quiet thank you, and stepped out into the bustling city, carrying warmth, hope, and a strange sense of dignity. The city remained loud and harsh, but Lena's perspective had shifted. She saw small acts of kindness everywhere, people rushing past but sometimes sharing a smile or a glance. She realized that life could hold surprises, that even in darkness light could appear. She held on to the memory of the man's eyes, his calm voice, and his gentle encouragement. It was a lifeline, a spark that gave her courage to face another day. That night she found her usual corner to sleep. She lay under her thin blanket, staring at the sky through the gaps in the buildings, thinking about the encounter. She repeated the man's words over and over. "You are not invisible." They became a mantra, a shield against the loneliness, fear, and uncertainty that had filled her life for so long. For the first time she believed it. For the first time she imagined a life where she mattered, where someone cared about her not for what she could do, but for who she was. And somewhere in the city, the man thought about her as well. He wondered about the life she led, the courage she displayed, and the world that had overlooked her for so long. He decided, silently and firmly, that he could not stop at one meal, one conversation. He wanted to find a way to help her thrive, to provide more than temporary relief. He wanted to give her opportunities she had never dreamed of, to show her the value of her own life. For Lena, the days that followed became a delicate dance of trust and discovery. She returned to the cafe, and each time their conversations grew deeper. She shared more about her thoughts, her observations, and her small dreams. He shared advice, encouragement, and sometimes just silence that allowed her to speak freely. Each day she left feeling stronger, more confident, more human. Each day he left feeling inspired, humbled, and quietly awed by the resilience and intelligence of a young girl who had survived against all odds. Their connection became a lifeline, not just of material support but of emotional and human sustenance. Lena began to see the possibility of a future, a world beyond the streets, a life where her ideas, her efforts, and her existence had meaning. The man began to see the profound impact one act of kindness could have, not just on a single life, but on the way he viewed the world and his own role within it. The miracle, subtle and quiet, was unfolding. It was not in grand gestures or dramatic changes, but in the simple recognition of worth, the gentle acknowledgement of humanity, and the slow, steady building of trust between two souls from completely different worlds. And this was only the beginning. The days after Lena's first meetings with the man at the cafe were filled with a quiet transformation. She began to notice things differently. The way sunlight filtered between buildings, the kindness in a stranger's glance, and even the small victories of surviving another day. But more than that, she noticed herself. She felt stronger, braver, and strangely hopeful. The meals he provided were not just nourishment for her body, they were nourishment for her mind and spirit. Each day, she returned to the cafe a little more confident, a little more willing to share her thoughts. She told him about the small things she noticed in the city, the games children played in alleyways, the way street performers could make even the coldest passerby smile, the beauty hidden in places most people ignored. He listened, fascinated, jotting down notes sometimes, asking questions, not as a teacher but as someone genuinely curious about her world. One chilly morning, he suggested they take a short walk after their meal. Lena hesitated, unsure of leaving the familiar corner of the cafe, but his warm smile and gentle encouragement reassured her. They walked slowly through the streets, Lena keeping a careful eye on their surroundings, as she always did, but also feeling a strange sense of safety. For the first time, someone was walking beside her with genuine care, not just caution or curiosity. They stopped at a small park. Lena had been to many parks before, but this one felt different because she wasn't alone and invisible. He asked her to sit on a bench. The morning sun warmed their faces and the city noise faded into a distant hum. She took a deep breath, letting herself feel the calm that surrounded her. "Lena," he began, "I've been thinking, you have a lot of courage and intelligence. I can see it, and I believe others would see it too if given the chance. But I realize that just giving you meals isn't enough. You deserve more than scraps from strangers. You deserve the chance to grow, to learn, to live fully." Lena's eyes widened. She had never been offered a chance like this before. Most adults either ignored her or treated her like a problem. Never before had someone offered her opportunity, care, and trust all at once. Her voice trembled slightly as she asked, What do you mean?" He looked at her with deep sincerity. "I mean that I want to help you, Lena. Not just for today, not just for a meal, but for your future. I want to make sure you have a safe place to stay, a chance to go to school, and the guidance to reach your potential." Her mind raced. Safe place? School? Guidance? These were things she had only dreamed of in her quiet moments at night, huddled in corners hoping tomorrow might be easier. She didn't know what to say. Tears welled up in her eyes, not just for the opportunity, but for the fact that someone truly saw her worth. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't need to say anything yet," he replied gently. "Just know that this offer is real, and if you're willing, I want you to accept it." Lena thought of her life on the streets, the cold nights, the empty stomachs, the constant fear of danger. The idea of safety, warmth, and learning felt almost unreal, but she also felt a spark of hope, the same spark that had led her to approach him the first time. She nodded slowly, determination mixing with apprehension. I want to try," she said. From that day, her life began to change. He arranged a small room for her in a safe place, providing basic necessities, clothes, a bed, and warm meals. The room was simple, but to Lena it was a palace. For the first time, she had a space that was hers, a place where she could sleep without fear and think without interruption. It was more than just physical safety. It was the foundation for rebuilding her life. He also arranged for her to attend a nearby school. Lena had never been in a proper classroom before, and the first day was overwhelming. She was nervous, shy, and unsure if she belonged. But the man encouraged her, reminding her that learning was a journey and that everyone started somewhere. Slowly she adapted. She discovered a love for reading, writing, and drawing. Her natural curiosity flourished under guidance and her confidence grew. Meanwhile, their relationship deepened. He continued to mentor her, not as a teacher dictating lessons, but as a guide who respected her thoughts and choices. They discussed ideas, books, and dreams. He encouraged her to express herself, to explore her talents, and to see the value in her own perspective. Lena learned to trust, not blindly, but with careful understanding, realizing that there were people in the world who would nurture her without judgment. One afternoon, he took her to a small art supply store. Lena's eyes widened at the rows of pencils, paints, and paper. She had never owned her own supplies before. He smiled, watching her hesitate, then slowly pick out a set of paints and brushes. Her hands shook as she clutched them, overwhelmed by gratitude and excitement. For Lena, it wasn't just about the materials. It was about being recognized, valued, and encouraged to pursue something she loved. They spent hours in the park, Lena drawing scenes from her past life, the streets, the corners where she had slept, and the people she had observed but no one else noticed. He praised her work, pointing out her attention to detail and the emotion in her art. His encouragement was steady and genuine, building her confidence in ways she had never experienced. But the change wasn't just for Lena. He too felt the transformation. He had seen hardship and struggle in his work, but observing Lena's resilience and determination reminded him of the power of human spirit. He realized that true wealth wasn't in money or possessions, but in the ability to touch lives meaningfully and to recognize the potential in others. Lena had changed him, just as he was changing her. Months passed and Lena's growth became evident. She was no longer just a quiet, cautious girl surviving on the streets. She was curious, articulate, and engaged with the world around her. Her art improved, her reading comprehension advanced, and she began to make friends at school. She still carried memories of her past, but those memories no longer defined her entirely. They were part of her story, yes, but she was learning to write new chapters, ones filled with hope, opportunity, and self-belief. The man continued to provide guidance and support, helping her navigate challenges and celebrate achievements. He encouraged her to volunteer at local shelters, sharing her story with other children who struggled. Lena's empathy and experience became a source of inspiration for others, showing that kindness, perseverance, and courage could change lives. She realized that her past suffering had given her insight and strength that could help others, and she embraced this role with humility and determination. Through this journey, Lena learned more than academics or art. She learned self-respect, resilience, and the importance of human connection. She discovered that kindness, when given sincerely, could ripple outward, touching countless lives. The man had not only given her material support, but also emotional nourishment, teaching her that she was worthy of care, love, and opportunities. The transformation was gradual but profound. Lena's laughter became more frequent, her posture more confident, and her outlook more positive. She still faced challenges, days when she missed her old life, nights when fear or doubt crept in, but she had tools to cope, people who cared, and a vision of a future she could build. Each step forward was a victory, a testament to her resilience and the power of genuine human compassion. The man observed all of this with quiet pride. He had set out to help, to provide meals and guidance, but he realized that the real miracle was not just in his actions, but in Lena's response. Her courage, intelligence, and determination were the true catalyst for change. His role was to nurture and support, but the transformation came from her own strength and willingness to embrace opportunity. One evening, as they sat together reviewing her latest drawings, he said softly, "Lena, look at how far you've come. I see your strength, your creativity, and your heart. Never forget that this is yours. You earned it." Lena looked at him, her eyes shining with tears she didn't try to hide. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not just for the things you gave me, but for believing in me when no one else did." He nodded, understanding that this was the essence of their journey. It wasn't just about food, shelter, or supplies. It was about recognizing human potential, nurturing it, and giving someone the chance to see their own worth. Lena had been invisible once, overlooked and dismissed, but now she was seen, valued, and empowered. The miracle, he realized, wasn't a single act, it was the ongoing process of trust, care, and belief. As Lena continued to grow, she began to dream bigger dreams. She imagined a life where she could help others, where her art could tell stories that mattered, and where her experiences could inspire change. The city, once a place of fear and struggle, now felt like a canvas of possibility. She carried the lessons she had learned, the kindness she had received, and the belief in herself into every new challenge, and so, the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and Lena's life transformed in ways she had never imagined. The man's gesture, the offer to help, to provide, to believe, had set off a chain of events that would change both of their lives forever. Through patience, trust, and genuine care, he had given her not just survival but a future filled with opportunity, hope, and purpose, and Lena in turn embraced it, proving that even in the darkest circumstances, courage, resilience, and human kindness could create a miracle that would last a lifetime. Lena's days had started to feel full of possibility. Each morning she woke in her small, safe room, sunlight filtering through the window, feeling a sense of security she had never known. The fear and uncertainty of sleeping on cold streets were behind her. She had space to breathe, to think, and to dream. School had become a place of excitement instead of anxiety, and the once overwhelming world felt more navigable with each passing day. At school, she began to form friendships. At first, Lena was hesitant. She had spent so much of her life alone, cautious of others, wary of being hurt or ignored. But she noticed other children were kind, curious, and eager to share experiences. Slowly, she opened up, letting them see her gentle humor, her keen observations, and her deep empathy for those who struggled. She found that laughter was possible again, and she cherished the moments when she could simply be a child, unburdened by hunger or fear. Her art flourished as well. Every evening she would sit by her window with her paints and brushes, capturing the world as she saw it. Her drawings told stories of streets she had walked, people she had seen, and moments of quiet beauty unnoticed by most. She found that painting was not just a creative outlet, but a way to process her emotions, to transform her past experiences into something meaningful. Her mentor continued to encourage her, providing guidance and constructive feedback while letting her voice remain authentic and pure. The bond between Lena and the man deepened. He became more than a mentor. He became a trusted confidant, a figure of stability and care in her life. They spent hours discussing her dreams, ideas, and even small worries. He encouraged her to take on challenges, to step beyond her comfort zone, and to trust in her own abilities. Lena, in turn, respected his advice, recognizing that his experience and insight could help her navigate a world she was only beginning to understand. One weekend, he took her to a local community center where volunteers worked to help children like her. Lena watched in awe as people dedicated themselves to making a difference. Inspired, she began to volunteer herself, helping younger children learn to read and assisting with art projects. She shared her story quietly, not for sympathy, but to show others that hardships could be overcome with courage, perseverance, and support. Each time she helped someone, she felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond personal achievement. She was contributing to something larger than herself. Her confidence grew steadily. She began participating in school projects, joining art competitions, and even speaking in front of small groups. These were things she had never imagined she could do, yet each success reinforced her belief in her own capabilities. She realized that her past, while painful, had taught her resilience, creativity, and empathy, qualities that were now helping her thrive. The man continued to support her in practical ways as well. He arranged for additional tutoring when she struggled, helped her acquire supplies for school and art, and encouraged her to explore opportunities she had never considered. But he also focused on nurturing her independence. He wanted her to learn to rely on her own skills, to make decisions, and to develop the confidence to pursue her dreams without fear. One day, he suggested they visit an art exhibition. Lena had never been to one before. The bright lights, the vibrant colors, and the diversity of art left her speechless. She wandered through the galleries, absorbing every detail, and felt inspired by the creativity and passion of others. He watched her closely, noticing the way her eyes lit up, the way she paused to study each piece thoughtfully, and the quiet excitement that radiated from her. He knew that this exposure to the wider world would expand her horizons and fuel her ambition. After the exhibition, they sat in a nearby park, sharing their thoughts. Lena spoke about the emotions she felt while observing the art, about the stories each painting seemed to tell, and about how she wanted her own work to move people. He listened, offering encouragement and guidance, but always letting her voice take the lead. He reminded her that art was not just about technique, but about authenticity, emotion, and the ability to touch others' hearts. As time passed, Lena's life became a balance of school, art, volunteering, and personal growth. She maintained a disciplined routine, setting aside time each day for learning, creative expression, and reflection. She discovered the joy of accomplishment, the satisfaction of helping others, and the importance of personal responsibility. Each day was a building block, shaping her into a resilient, compassionate, and capable young individual. Her mentor, too, found joy in observing her development. He had always believed that education, support, and encouragement could transform lives, but witnessing Lena's growth firsthand reaffirmed his convictions. He admired her determination, her kindness, and her unwavering spirit. Their interactions became a mutual source of inspiration, as he learned from her observations and perspectives, and she learned from his guidance and experience. Lena also began to dream more boldly. She imagined pursuing higher education, exploring new cities, and sharing her art with wider audiences. She envisioned programs to help children who faced challenges similar to her own, creating spaces where they could feel seen, valued, and supported. Her past struggles became a source of motivation rather than limitation, fueling her ambition and empathy. Despite her progress, Lena never forgot her roots. She remembered the nights spent on cold streets, the hunger that gnawed at her, and the uncertainty of each day. These memories reminded her of the importance of compassion, humility, and resilience. They shaped her decisions, her interactions with others, and her commitment to making a positive impact in the world. Her mentor recognized the significance of these experiences. He emphasized that while her past had been difficult, it had given her unique insight and strength. He encouraged her to use these experiences not as a source of shame, but as a foundation for empathy, creativity, and leadership. Together, they explored ways she could channel her experiences into meaningful action, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. Over time, Lena became a role model within her community. Her story inspired others, demonstrating that even in the face of adversity, courage, determination, and support could create profound change. She spoke at local events, participated in community programs, and continued to develop her art, always emphasizing the importance of resilience and compassion. Her presence became a symbol of hope, showing that transformation was possible with the right combination of opportunity, guidance, and self-belief. The bond between Lena and her mentor remained strong. He continued to offer guidance, support, and encouragement, while respecting her autonomy and choices. Their relationship was built on trust, respect, and mutual admiration. He celebrated her successes, helped her navigate challenges, and provided a stable presence in a life that had once been uncertain and unpredictable. Through this ongoing support, Lena's growth accelerated. She became more articulate, confident, and self-assured. Her art gained recognition, her academic performance improved, and her leadership skills developed. She continued to volunteer and support others, demonstrating that personal growth and community engagement could go hand in hand. Each step forward reinforced her belief in her own potential and the power of human connection. As Lena's world expanded, she encountered new challenges and opportunities. She learned to navigate complex social situations, to manage responsibilities, and to balance her personal goals with her commitment to helping others. These experiences strengthened her resilience, adaptability, and problem-solving abilities. She discovered that challenges, while sometimes daunting, were opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Her mentor provided guidance without controlling her decisions, allowing Lena to learn from her experiences and develop her judgment. This approach fostered independence, critical thinking, and self-confidence. Lena began to understand that true support involves empowerment, not dependency, and that the most meaningful guidance respects the individuality and autonomy of the person being supported. Over the years, Lena's life continued to flourish. She developed a strong sense of identity, purpose, and self-worth. She embraced her talents, nurtured her passions, and cultivated meaningful relationships. Her experiences transformed her into a compassionate, resilient, and driven individual, capable of making a positive impact on the world around her. Her mentor remained a constant presence, offering wisdom, encouragement, and stability. Their relationship exemplified the profound impact that genuine care, trust, and belief in human potential can have. Through patience, guidance, and unwavering support, he helped Lena navigate her journey from vulnerability to empowerment, from fear to confidence, and from survival to thriving. Lena's story became a testament to the transformative power of opportunity, mentorship, and human connection. It demonstrated that even in the face of significant adversity, resilience, determination, and support can create profound change. Her journey inspired others to recognize the potential within themselves and to extend kindness and guidance to those who need it most. In the quiet moments, Lena often reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered the streets, the hunger, the fear, and the moments of despair. But she also remembered the kindness, the encouragement, and the belief that someone had placed in her. These memories fueled her continued growth, her empathy for others, and her commitment to making a difference. The city around her remained bustling and indifferent, but Lena had found her place within it. She moved with confidence, purpose, and a sense of belonging that she had never known. Her past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. She was a young woman with dreams, talents, and a mission to contribute positively to the world. Through education, mentorship, and personal determination, Lena had transformed her life. She had moved from vulnerability to empowerment, from survival to thriving, and from uncertainty to purpose. The miracle that began with a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a life filled with opportunity, hope, and meaningful connection. And as she continued to grow, she carried forward the lessons of compassion, resilience, and belief in human potential, touching the lives of others and inspiring change in ways she had never imagined possible. Years had passed since Lena first walked into the cafe. Small, hungry, and cautious, and the city around her had not changed much. Its streets were still noisy, the sidewalks crowded, and life moved fast, often oblivious to those struggling to survive. But Lena's life had transformed completely. The small girl who once asked for leftovers had grown into a young woman filled with confidence, talent, and purpose. Her world was no longer defined by fear or hunger, but by opportunity, creativity, and human connection. The mentor remained a constant presence in her life, guiding, encouraging, and supporting her as she navigated the challenges and victories of adulthood. Their bond had grown beyond simple guidance. It was now one of mutual respect and deep understanding. He had watched her blossom, proud of the person she had become, yet still amazed by the resilience she had demonstrated from the very beginning. Lena had completed her education with distinction. She excelled academically, pursued her artistic passions, and became an active participant in community projects aimed at supporting children and families in need. She had found her voice both literally and figuratively, and she used it to inspire others. Through volunteering and mentorship, she began to impact the lives of those who, like her, had once felt invisible and powerless. One morning, as Lena walked through a familiar neighborhood to meet with a group of children she was mentoring, she paused to take in the scene. The streets were alive with movement. Vendors selling fresh produce, children playing in the parks, and neighbors greeting each other. It struck her how much her perception of the city had changed. She once had feared every corner and alley, yet now she navigated it with ease, confidence, and a sense of belonging. The children gathered around her, eager for guidance, stories, and creative activities. Lena smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of connection. She handed out art supplies, encouraging each child to express themselves, to capture their worlds on paper, and to recognize their own potential. She reminded them that creativity, courage, and kindness were powerful tools for transforming their lives, just as they had been for hers. Later that day, she visited a community center where she had organized a small exhibition of children's art. She looked around at the vibrant paintings, drawings, and sculptures that reflected the unique experiences and emotions of each young artist. The room was filled with parents, volunteers, and local residents, all appreciating the children's work. Lena moved among them, introducing the young artists, sharing their stories, and highlighting their strengths. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her journey had brought her to a place where she could create opportunities for others to thrive. In the evening, Lena returned to her apartment, a modest but cozy space that represented independence and stability. She prepared a simple meal and sat by the window, reflecting on her life. The memories of cold streets, empty stomachs, and uncertainty were distant now, but they remained a part of her, a reminder of the resilience and determination that had carried her through difficult times. She felt gratitude for every person who had helped her along the way, especially the mentor who had believed in her from the start. The mentor visited her later that evening, bringing with him quiet conversation, laughter, and insight. They discussed her plans for the future, the projects she wanted to initiate, and the ways she could expand her impact. Lena shared her aspirations to open a community center that combined art education with mentorship programs for at-risk children. The mentor listened attentively, offering guidance while encouraging her to pursue her vision with determination and confidence. "You have everything you need to make a real difference," he said. "Your experiences, your creativity, and your compassion are invaluable. Trust yourself and don't be afraid to take risks. The world needs people like you." Lena felt a deep sense of responsibility and purpose. She understood that her journey had given her not only strength, but also the insight to guide and inspire others. She recognized that her success was not solely her own, but the product of community, mentorship, and human connection. She was determined to pay that forward, creating a ripple effect of opportunity and hope. In the months that followed, Lena worked tirelessly to establish the community center. She engaged with local organizations, secured funding, and designed programs that would nurture creativity, resilience, and leadership in children. She collaborated with artists, educators, and volunteers, building a network of support that reflected the lessons she had learned from her own mentor. Each step was challenging yet rewarding, and Lena approached every obstacle with determination and ingenuity. The opening day of the center was filled with excitement and anticipation. Children, parents, volunteers, and community members gathered to celebrate the new space. Lena welcomed everyone with warmth and humility, sharing her story to inspire and encourage. She spoke about perseverance, the power of mentorship, and the importance of believing in oneself. The audience listened, captivated by her authenticity, passion, and the tangible proof of her transformation. As the program commenced, Lena observed the children engaging in creative activities, expressing themselves and discovering their potential. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment and joy, knowing that the center would provide opportunities that she had once only dreamed of. Her work was no longer about survival. It was about creating possibilities, fostering growth, and inspiring hope. The mentor stood nearby, observing with pride and quiet satisfaction. He had seen many successes in his life, but witnessing Lena's journey and the impact she was now creating was profoundly moving. He recognized that his guidance had sparked a transformation, but it was Lena's courage, resilience, and dedication that had truly shaped her life and the lives of others. As the day drew to a close, Lena took a moment to reflect. She thought of the small girl who had timidly asked for leftovers in a busy cafe, uncertain and wary of the world. She marveled at the distance she had traveled, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually. The challenges of her past had forged strength. The kindness of her mentor had nurtured potential, and her own determination had driven her to create meaningful change. The community center became a beacon of hope, creativity, and mentorship impacting countless lives. Lena continued to grow, learning from the children, volunteers, and community members around her. She embraced new opportunities, cultivated her artistic talents, and nurtured the relationships that had supported her journey. Her life was no longer defined by scarcity or fear, but by abundance, purpose, and human connection. Through it all, Lena remained humble and grounded. She never forgot the small acts of kindness that had changed the trajectory of her life. She remained committed to helping others, to creating spaces where potential could flourish, and to spreading the message that every person, regardless of their circumstances, deserved to be seen, valued, and supported. The mentor continued to guide her, but increasingly, Lena's leadership and vision became the driving force behind her projects. She inspired others through her actions, demonstrating that resilience, empathy, and determination could overcome even the most challenging beginnings. Together, they celebrated successes, learned from setbacks, and envisioned a future filled with possibility. In the quiet moments, Lena often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the hunger, the cold nights, and the uncertainty, but she also remembered the compassion, encouragement, and belief that had transformed her life. Those memories became a source of strength, reminding her of the importance of empathy, mentorship, and perseverance. Lena's life became a testament to the transformative power of human connection. The small act of kindness in the cafe had grown into a lifelong journey of growth, learning, and impact. She demonstrated that with opportunity, guidance, and determination, even the most challenging beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes. As the sun set over the city, Lena stood outside the community center, watching the children play, laugh, and create. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her journey had not only changed her life but was also shaping the lives of others. She understood that the true measure of success was not personal wealth or recognition, but the ability to uplift, inspire, and empower others. And so, the young girl who once asked for leftovers became a woman who gave hope, opportunity, and purpose to countless others. Her story was a living testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and human potential. It was a reminder that miracles often begin with small acts of care, and that even the smallest gesture can ignite a chain of events that changes lives forever. Lena's journey had already reached a remarkable point, yet she felt that there was